Hey everybody, welcome to Waddle's MTG. Today we're going to be opening this War of the Spark Prerelease pack. It's factory sealed, and we're going to be making a sealed deck out of it. We're going to be leaving out the promo cards because sealed at this point is not going to have promo cards. And so let's get to it. Alright, so here we have it. Let's go ahead and open it up. You get this cool D20 with the War of the Spark symbol on it. Spin down. That's the right side. And got our packs here. A little sealed deck entrance. We're going to set those aside. Alright, so our promo. We have an Arlen voice of the pack and Ilhart the Raise Boar. That's pretty sweet. Legendary god. Boar god. Alright, and for this sealed deck that we're going to be building, we're just going to go ahead and set this aside. Got the zombie army token with a free code. Alright, let's go ahead and start opening pack one. So, the best thing to do, so we can get this pack opened, is to separate all the cards by color. And I also like keeping the rare out of it as well. So we'll go ahead and start separating them by color. Oh, we got a sweet first rare, Nissa Who Shakes the World. It's a very strong card, so we'll go ahead and set it above here. Oh, we even got the Nissa emblem. Kind of cool. On to the next pack. Bezier, War Shrieker, Skulker. That was Outburst, it's really strong. Another green Planeswalker. And we got a first mythic, Finale of Revelation. Alright, and so as we're going through these packs, we're not going to be looking at every single card, just because there's a lot of cards that are not actually going to be making our deck. So we're just going to go through and open them all, put them all in their colors, and then at the end, oh nice, another rare Planeswalker, Sorin, very strong, and we got a sweet foil, Jaya's Greeting. So we'll go through all the cards. Once we've got them all in their colors, we'll look more in depth at them to find out which cards we want for our deck, and we'll start talking about why we want each one. And why we're going the colors, or why we end up going the colors that we do. Enter the God Eternal is also a very strong card. Let's stick it over here. Alright, we got Feather the Redeemed. Get in the white, red aggro decks. And last pack here. And Soul Diviner is our last rare. Okay. So, cards that we really want to play. Nissa is really powerful. Sorin is really powerful, and this Enter the God Eternals is really powerful, as well as this Soul Diviner is pretty good. These two don't think we have the right cards to want to put in a deck with one of these. We may end up doing this Finale of Revolution, but we're going to go and set those to the side at first. So one thing that I was noticing as we were going through is our mana fixing. And so that's different things that help us play one color and then splash cards of other colors. So like this Leyline Prowler, for example, is really good. It's a 2/3 for 3 mana with Death Touch and Lifelink. So it can help you gain life. It will kill anything it gets into combat with. And it also has the ability to tap to add 1 mana of any color. So that's really good to help cast cards of other colors that are not our main colors. We also have this Gateway Plaza, which can help do the same thing. The cost of coming into play tapped and tapping an extra mana that turn. We have a Mana Geode, which is kind of strong. Helps fix your mana, ramps you a little bit, and it gives you a scry. We have a Guild Globe. It's kind of last resort mana fixing if you really need it. It replaces itself by drawing a card, but it's just a one-time use because it has to sacrifice itself to add that extra colored mana. There is this Prismite as well. I would suggest not playing this unless you really have to, because it costs 2 mana to add that splash mana. So you're basically losing a mana every time you're trying to cast something that's not in your main colors. And then if we look at green, green also has this New Horizons. When it enters the battlefield, you put a counter on target creature you control, and then the land that it enchants also can add 2 mana of any one color. So it helps with splashing different colors, and it puts a counter on your creatures. That's really good with populate synergies in this set, and it just makes your creature bigger, which can be good. And then something to notice is we have this Nissa's Triumph. Normally it can only search for 2 basic forest cards, but we also have the Nissa Planeswalker. So if we have this out, this could potentially search for 3 lands of any color and any type. So that's something that we could maybe look at. And I don't think there was anything else. Actually, this Jiangyangu has the ability that creatures with +1 counters on them have tap to add mana of any color, and then he also puts counters. So that's another way to splash. So something that I really like in this set, probably my favorite way to play this set, is green, black, 5 color. So what you would do is you would play green and black cards, and that's got all of our mana fixing in here, mainly the Leyline Prowler, and then you can use that to fix your mana to play other cards. So for example, Sorin is black, but he also requires 1 white mana. You can use the mana fixing from the green and the black to play Sorin off of just 1 extra splash. And to the God Eternals, it costs 2 blue mana, but something like New Horizon can give you both of that blue mana in 1. So this may be something that's a little harder to splash, but we may want to do it anyways, depending on where we end up, because of how powerful it is. And then Soul Diviner also costs a single blue, so that's something else we can look at. Then going into commons and uncommons, Watley requires a really specific deck, so we probably aren't going to be playing that. Vraska, however, is really good, making Death Touch creatures, putting counters on those creatures, and she just makes 2 creatures for 1 card, which is always good. And since those creatures will have Death Touch, they'll be able to basically kill any other creature they get into combat with. Since she's green and black, she'll be really easy to put into our deck. 10th District Legionary is strong, but it's red and white, and we're probably not going either of those colors. And then we have 2 Rouse Outburst, which is really good. Deals 3 damage to any target, so it can kill a creature, and then you also get a look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So it's basically kill a creature and draw a card, and then also take a land out of the top of your deck most of the time. So that's something really strong. That's something we may want to look at. Blue-red is also a really strong archetype. We have another card for that as well, Invade the City. amass X, where X is the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard. And in blue and red, there's going to be a lot of instants and sorceries. So that's something that can make a huge creature for just 3 mana. And then finally, D-Spark. Exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. It's really strong. We are probably splashing white if we go green-black anyways for Sorin. So that's something that we would want in there. Don't think we're going to be playing white. There's just really nothing that leads us to wanting just white cards. We'll splash for some of the stronger white cards, but in white itself, Divine Arrow's good. Rising Populace I've been surprised with and happy with in most of my decks. And Law Enforcer is strong, War Screecher, and Wanderer Strike. So there's just a few cards in white that we would actually want to play. And so there's just not enough to make a deck. So we probably are going to be passing white. The rest of these cards are really filler. You really just don't want to be playing 4 mana 2/5s in your deck. They're just lower power than what you can be doing in other colors. So we're going to go ahead and set all the white cards on the side here. And since Feather's double white, we're going to be setting that one on the side as well. So the 2 decks that we're going to be looking at are a green-black, splashing some other colors, and then a blue-red, and we may even splash something like Enter the God Eternals in the blue-red deck, because it's a spell, and it's only 1 single black. So let's go ahead and set the blue-red cards over to the side. We'll get to that deck in a second. And we'll go ahead and start with green and black and see what we can do with that. So Snare Spinner's really strong, Band Dealer's strong, Arlen's Wolf is good, Kron Strangler's good if you have cards that go well with it, Giant Growth is strong, Challenger Troll is strong, here's another Kron Strangler, Pollen Bright Druid is very good as well. The rest of these cards are situational. Thundering Ceratok is good, but we probably can't run too many 5-drops, and this is one of the lower powered 5-drops that you can put in your deck. And then the rest of these just don't do enough. Nissa's Triumph is something that we can maybe look at since we have Nissa, but if you don't have Nissa, and even if you do have Nissa, this isn't something that you're really excited to put in your deck. So we'll set those to the side for a moment. And then black has some really good cards. Toll of the Invasion is really good. Davriel is really good. Banehound is not great. We have 2 Aid the Fallens. We may even have another one. Yeah, we have 3 Aid the Fallens. This is something that you may want to put in your deck, but you really need 3 to 5 really good Planeswalkers to want something like this, because it's not good unless you're getting both a creature and a Planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. If you're getting both, it's great. If you're only getting one, it's low power, and also it requires that that Planeswalker or creature is in your graveyard, which sometimes just doesn't happen. Spark Harvest is really good. It can kill any creature or Planeswalker, and it's only 5 mana if you have to pay the full cost, but being able to cost 1 and sacrifice something like a Pollen Bright Druid that gave its counter somewhere else, or a 1/1 army token from something like Toll the Invasion is really strong. Herald of the Dreadhorde, 4 mana for a 3/2 that usually trades with some creature and then also makes a 2/2 amass token. Lazotep Reaper, it's just 2 creatures for 2 mana. That's great for stuff like Spark Harvest. It puts counters on the army for different proliferate things. And that's really it for black. Maybe some number of Aid the Fallen, since we do have Davriel, Vraska, Nissa, and Sorin. And then we also have this Jiangyangu. So we'll go ahead and set the rest of these black ones on the side. Alright. And then we can fill out our deck. New Horizons is great. Leyline Prowler is great. Jiangyangu is great. Guild Globe, we're going to set aside. The problem with Guild Globe as well is it doesn't splash things like Enter the God Eternals as well as New Horizons, because when you sacrifice it, you add 2 mana, but it has to be different colors. So if you have Enter the God Eternals and you don't have any blue mana, Guild Globe still can't cast it, even though it adds mana, because it has to be 2 different colors. As opposed to something like New Horizons, where both mana is 1 single color, so it can double splash things like Enter the God Eternals much better. Mana Geode is pretty good. We may end up playing it. And then Gateway Plaza is kind of free since it's a land, so we'll put that in the deck for sure, since we're definitely playing at least 3 colors. And then Nissa Vraska, Sorin, D-Spark is strong enough, I think, that we'll splash that. We'll try and fit Enter the God Eternals, and Soul Diviner goes pretty well with all of our 1/1 counter things as well. So we'll go ahead and put that in there as well. Alright, so the next thing after determining which cards you want to play and what colors is to lay out your mana curve. So a good limited deck wants to be able to play something every turn and spend the most mana they can every turn. So you want to make sure you always have cards at every mana cost to make sure you always have those things available to you. And then you also want to have more things on the lower end of the curve, so at 2 and 3 mana, because there are some games where you just won't find your higher end mana until later in the game, so you don't want to make your deck have too many of those cards, or else you just won't be able to cast them until you have the mana for them, and sometimes you just die before you get there, because you don't have enough early game to protect you until that late game. And then what we're also going to be doing is separating creatures from non-creatures, so that you make sure you have enough creatures in your deck at each different mana cost. Because it's definitely more important to play the creatures on curve than it is the spells. Like Aid the Fallen, you're never going to cast this on turn 2, even though it only costs 2, because at that point you won't have enough creatures in your graveyard, or planeswalkers. Alright, so from right here it looks like we have a lot of non-creature spells on 3, but a lot of them, like New Horizons and Mana Geode, you just want to cast turn 3 to help you ramp up to your other spells. The Planeswalkers, Jiangyangu and Davriel, are both better the earlier they can come down, because they can start affecting the board. And then Toll of the Invasions, you also want to cast early, and it also is kind of a creature because it amasses 1. So this is fine, because some of these are basically creatures anyways, in Planeswalkers and the Amass token. And then both of these are kind of creatures as well. Sorin can get creatures back, Vraska makes creatures, and then Nissa also makes creatures. So we'll count here. You want usually about 23 spells and 17 lands in limited. So we've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So right now we just need to cut 1 card. And I'm kind of tempted to just cut this Enter the God Eternals. It's one of the more powerful cards in our deck, but the problem with it costing double blue, we would need either New Horizons or 2 of any of our spells that will give us different colored mana. And so while it is very powerful, not being able to cast it could be a huge liability when we could just play another spell that would actually affect the board and help us achieve our goal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one. So right now we have 23 spells and a really good curve. We have good mana fixing to play Sorin and D-Spark, and then this Soul Diviner as well. Yeah, now all we really need to figure out is the mana base. So in this deck, cards like D-Spark isn't going to be cast until probably turn 5, because it can only exile permanents with converted mana cost 4 or greater, so we don't need to worry about having white early. Soul Diviner is really good on 2, but it doesn't need to be played on 2, because its ability is effective at all points in the game. For example, we can plus Sorin, put him up to 6, Soul Diviner, remove 1 counter, just down to 5, and then we get a draw card, and we can do that with all of our Planeswalkers. And then we could also do it with just different creatures that can get counters as well. So really what we want to be able to cast early is this green stuff. So we're probably going to want more green in our deck, and then also the only double cost card is double green. And then Nissa also is really good with forests, because any forest we have will add 2 mana, because that's Nissa's static ability. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. So we're going to want more forests than anything else, so probably, let's say 9 forests, plus this Gateway Plaza, so that's 10 lands, so we have 7 more lands available to us. In this deck, I think we want to just go swamps on all the rest of those. Even though we have these other cards, Gateway Plaza splashes for them, Mana Geode splashes for them, New Horizons splashes for them, Leyline Prowler splashes for them, and Jianyongu splashes for them. So we really only need green and black mana sources. So we're going to go ahead and just go 9 forests, 7 swamps, and this 1 Gateway Plaza. And so that would be our black and green deck. So that would be it for that. And then we would be splashing these white and blue cards as well. So that seems like a really good deck. It may end up being the final deck that we make, but we're also going to take a look at the blue-red deck, because there are a lot of really strong cards in blue and red as well. So for example, we have Invade the City, we have those 2 Ral's Outbursts that we were talking about. Finale of Revelation will let us draw cards, basically according to how much mana we have, draw X cards. Then if X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Realistically, you'll never cast this for 12 or more mana, so it's basically just draw cards equal to how much mana you have, -2, and then exile this. So that's a strong, powerful card that can help you just get really far ahead in the late game. Enter the God Eternals is going to be really easy to splash in this deck, so it only costs 1 additional black, so that's something that we'll definitely look at. Spellgorger Weird is probably the best card, or one of the best cards in this deck, because whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1 counter, +1/+1 counter on Spellgorger Weird. It gets really big really fast. Goblin Assault Team is fine. It's a 4/1 with haste. When it dies, you put a counter on target creature you control. This will basically trade with just any creature they have, and there's a lot of 1/1 armies running around. So I don't like this a lot. It is something that we could potentially play, but I like leaving it out of the deck in the beginning unless we really need it. Here's another Spellgorger Weird, which is great. Honor the God Pharaoh is a spell that lets you discard a card to draw 2 cards and then also amass 1. So it's a creature in the 1/1 army token that also lets you draw cards and put a instant or sorcery into your deck, which is great with the Spellgorger Weirds, things like Invade the City, and other blue-red spells matters cards. Blind Blast is okay. Only dealing 1 damage is usually not enough to take things out. The creature can't block this turn is really good, and it replaces itself, but usually this is not enough impact that I don't really like running a main deck. Jaya's Greeting is great. 3 damage to a creature, and Scry at instant speed for only 2 mana. Kill something, and you Scry, and it just matches really well with your deck. Dreadhorde Twins, 4 mana for a 2/2, but you also amass 2. And then the good thing about this is that your zombie tokens have trample. So all of the mass that we're doing in Invade the City, Honor the God Pharaoh, the Twins itself, and any other cards, like Enter the God Eternals, that token will have trample, so it'll be huge, and it will trample over anything. So this is also just 4 mana for 2 creatures and 4 total power and toughness, which is great. Turret Ogre, it's just a fine playable 4 mana for a 4/3 with reach. The fact that it has reach catches a lot of people off guard. It'll be able to block flying things, and a lot of people just don't realize that and will attack their flyers into it. Also, if you happen to have another creature with power 4 or more, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's just a strong, solid, limited card. Demolish, you should never play this. Destroy an artifact or land is just so low power, and for 4 mana it just doesn't do enough. On-cropping Crater and Invader, 3 mana for a 2/2. As long as it's your turn, it has first strike, and then you can sacrifice a creature to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. This is a lot better in the red-black deck, where there's a lot of extra creatures floating around. In blue-red, this isn't really what you want to be doing, so we're going to go ahead and set that aside. Tybalt's Rager, 2 mana for a 1/2. When it dies, it deals 1 damage to anything. This card is really good. It has the ability to pay 2 mana to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. So in the early game, it just gets in for 1 and can trade for any 2-drop. But in the late game, you can just pump it up to help it trade with a 5-drop and then also deal a damage to them. So this is just a really strong card. Chandra's Pyrohelix, it's kind of like Jaya's Greeting. You can kill something, instant speed for 2 mana. It's an instant sorcery. Yeah, and if you are able to get 2 things because you can put 1 damage on 2 different things, that's even better. There's another Goblin Assault team that we'll go ahead and set aside for now. In blue, we have Lazotep Plating. So you and permanents you control gain Hexproof until end of turn, and you amass 1. This is really strong against removal spells and against discard. And it's an instant, so we're going to put that in there. Spellkeeper Weird. You can sacrifice it, turn an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Since we do have a lot of really powerful instants and sorceries, this is a really good card. Tasmina's Transmutation is fine, but something that you have to really remember with this card is it doesn't remove +1/+1 counters. So, for example, if you put it on an army, all you're doing is making that army bigger, because it's normally a 0/0 token with +1/+1 counters. And with this, it's going to be a 1/1 creature with +1/+1 counters. And then just a lot of times the creature doesn't get as small as you expect because it has counters on it, especially in this set. On the other hand, this is really, really good against the God Eternals. It's really the only way in the set to remove them once they've already been in play. So that's something that we could look at. Flux Channeler. We don't have too many ways to make counters. But we have the 2 Spellgorger Weirds, for example, and all the Amass tokens. And this is every time you cast a non-creature spell, you proliferate. So we can put a counter on everything that already has a counter. And then if we get any Planeswalkers, we can also use this to buff those up. Augur of Bolas. If we have enough instants and sorceries, this is good. So it says, look at the top 3 cards of your library, reveal an instant or sorcery, and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. So 2 mana for a 1/3 is also fine. It's not great. But if you can get a spell off of it, it's amazing. So we'll look at that. Depending on how many instant sorceries we have, we may play that. Tamiel's Epiphany, scry 4 and then draw 2 cards. This will basically always get you what you want. If you need lands, it will help you find lands. If you need spells, it will put all the lands that are on top onto the bottom of your library and draw you those spells. Ashok Skulker is fine. Not really what you want to be playing. It's just kind of low power compared to other things. But if you have to, it's something that can help take out Planeswalkers. We'll go and set it aside for now. There's another Augur Bolas, so we'll look at the instant sorcery count. We have a Callous Dismissal, which is really strong. Return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand and amass 1. Just another way to get a sorcery in your graveyard. It bounces something, so it helps buy you extra time. or removes a blocker when you're going aggressive, and it makes a token or puts more counters on your tokens that are already there. So it's really strong. Cures Dambreaker. It's 6 mana, but it's for a 5/6, which is really big. And when it enters the battlefield, you proliferate, so you'll put a counter on everything again. It's a creature spell, and we don't want too many creature spells. We want a lot of non-creatures. So this may be something that we want. We'll go ahead and set it aside for now. Sky Theater Strix. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It looks like it's something that we would really want in this deck, but the problem of it being a 1/2 flyer for 2, it usually isn't big enough. Depending on how many non-creature spells, though, it may just be a 2/2 every turn, so that's something that we can look at. Here's another Spellkeeper Weird that can sacrifice to get our instant sorceries back. Since we have so many powerful ones again, we'll go ahead and put that in our deck. And then we've got Ashok Skulker and a stealth mission. Put 2 counters on target creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn. It's a replaceable card. If you really need to kill planeswalkers, it can help you out. But most of the time you don't want this in your deck. So let's look where we're at as far as mana curve here. We can pick up the cards. All right. And again, we're going to be separating the creatures from the non-creatures. This time, though, we're going to be looking more at the non-creatures, because that's what's important in this specific deck and in this archetype in this set. Alright, so right now we're looking at 11, 12 non-creature spells, and we have 11 creature spells. Yeah, so Augur of Bolas doesn't look as good in this deck as it can, although with 11 instants and sorceries, because I guess this is the only one it can't hit, that's usually enough. Usually you want at least 10, probably like 9 to 10, so 11 is definitely enough, but you really want to hit like 12 or more to get the most out of Augur of Bolas and be really consistent in hitting those, but we'll definitely play it in this deck. Sky Theater Strix as well. We have enough non-creature spells. At most turns it's going to get the buff, so I do like keeping it in here. I definitely like it over any of these other options here. Also, just 2 mana creatures in this format are really important, so you don't die to early aggression, and there's not very many good ones. And that is a pretty good one, so we'll go ahead and leave it in there. So this actually turned out, I believe, to be 23, so it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So that would be exactly what we want in our deck. Just checking if we want any of the artifacts. I don't think this deck would really want a Mana Geode. Yeah. So we would run the Gateway Plaza, and then we would also put, I think, 2 swamps for the Enter the God Eternals, so that we'd have 3 sources. Also remember, we have things like, let's see, we have things like Jaya's Greeting, which scries, Honor the God and Pharaoh, draws us 2 cards, Tammy's Epiphany, scries 4 and then draws 2, Rao's Outburst, both get us cards, and Finale of Revelation draws. So just drawing a lot of cards is also a way to help splash your extra color, because you're just more likely to find the small pieces of interaction that you have. And then in this deck, blue and red are both pretty close to important. I think blue is a little bit more what we would need. So after having the Gateway Plaza and 2 swamps, we would have 14 more land spaces, and I think we would actually just go 7 and 7. then we would have 8 red sources, 8 blue sources, and 3 black sources. We may even actually cut an extra black for a blue, and I think that's what we would do. So we would go ahead and go 8 islands, 7 mountains, 1 swamp, and then the 1 gateway plaza. So those are the 2 deck options that we have here. I'll go ahead and lay this one out again so that everyone can see what 2 options we had available to us here. Alright, so we've got our green-black splashing white and blue, and then we've got our blue-red splashing this 1 black card. Both of these decks look really strong. Personally, I would probably play this black-green deck just because I'm more familiar with the black-green archetype, and I do enjoy it a little bit more. Plus, I think cards like Nissa and Sorin are just powerful enough to take over a game by themselves. And I don't think the blue-red has any cards that can specifically do that, except maybe these Spellgorger weirds. But if you are more into the instants and sorcery deck, I think this blue-red deck is also really powerful and can do a lot of good work for you. There's a lot going on and a lot of really powerful pieces here. There's some pieces up here like the Crunch Wranglers that aren't great, but as a whole the deck works really well. So it's kind of up to personal preference here. Again, like I said, I would probably go with the green-black just because that's what I enjoy more, but both of these decks are really great, so either of them would work really well for you. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that box opening and sealed deck creation. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe to get more content. I'm also streaming on Twitch. You can find me Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Waddles MTG on Twitch as well, and you can find me on Instagram, Waddles MTG as well. And thanks everyone for stopping by.